Even though it's disappointing Notre Dame isn't going to make the college football playoff this season, at least we as fans can take solace in the fact that Notre Dame was able to break both USC and Pitt in the span of 3 weeks. I'll take it.
You are Locked On Irish, your daily podcast on the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Irish. Today is Monday, October 30th. So thanks for getting your week started here by making this your first listen of the day. I'm your host, Tyler Wojciak. I'm a Notre Dame alum and producer covering college football for Fox Sports. And today's episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnCollege and use code LockedOnCollege for a first deposit match up to $100. Daily fantasy sports made easy. Today, we're going to talk about Notre Dame's shellacking of the Pitt Panthers by a final score of 58-7. Look, I thought Notre Dame was going to win this game. I thought it might be a little tricky. I did not expect Notre Dame to just dominate Pitt in the way that they did. So let's start off with that. Pitt is terrible. They are no good, god-awful. They have nothing going for them this season. The fact that they were able to beat Louisville, and I know that Louisville didn't have Jawar Jordan in that game, they're going to need to have like a team of scientists and researchers look back at that game and figure out how the hell that happened, because the Pitt team I saw on Saturday was one of the worst in the Power Five. So Notre Dame handled their business. They dominated Pitt in the manner that they should. And I'm not really sure how much of this we could take away from it and apply it to the rest of the season going forward, or like the future of the Notre Dame football program. There are a few things, and I'll get to them in today's show, but I think that the main thing that I want to talk about from this game is how satisfying it is as a fan to watch Xavier Watts and Chris Tyree and what they've been doing, not just, on Saturday, but really all season long. But it felt like it culminated again on Saturday because Watts and Tyree were the stars of the day. And it's so great to see them succeed in the way that they are, because I think they represent everything that we love about college football as a whole and really the culture of the Notre Dame football program. So I'll explain to you what I mean. Let's start with Chris Tyree and his journey at Notre Dame so far. He was a 5-star recruit coming out of high school, one of the top running backs in the country, one of the top players in the country. He was a top 25 player nationally from Virginia, one of the highest rated offensive commits to Notre Dame in a really long time. And once he got to campus, there were really high expectations for him. Obviously, he was supposed to have the speed that, frankly, Notre Dame hadn't been accustomed to having, especially at the skill position. So Tyree was sitting behind Kyron Williams for his first 2 seasons. He did get some action in limited roles, but he did excel when he had those opportunities. Had 4 touchdowns as a true freshman, and then really shined in the Fiesta Bowl at the conclusion of his sophomore season. It looked like he was poised to have a breakout junior season in 2022. And it's not like he had a bad season, but he had to split carries with Wojciak and Logan Diggs, who were 2 younger players who were not as highly recruited as Tyree, but they developed, they proved that they were really good at the college level. And now all of a sudden, Chris Tyree is splitting carries with not just one guy, with 2 other guys. And he was still productive. He still had 100 carries. I thought he had a good season, but by the end of it, you're kind of questioning, wait, why is Chris Tyree playing running back, considering how well Wojciak and Logan Diggs were playing at the end of the year? So going into his senior season, Notre Dame asked him to change positions, and he could very easily have decided, you know what, the hell with that. I'm going to go transfer somewhere else. I'm going to be a running back. I basically been biding my time my whole college career. I was a 5-star for a reason. I'm going to go do this somewhere else. But he didn't. He decided he wanted to stay at Notre Dame, and he wanted to commit to what the coaches were asking him to do. So, you've heard all the offseason stories about Tyree, how he caught 10,000 balls, or maybe it was 20,000 balls. Either way, the dude absolutely grinded all summer long to learn how to play wide receiver at the college level, and he continued to work throughout the season. He had to split some time with Jane Greathouse, a true freshman, at the slot receiver position, but lately, he has been the most consistent wide receiver on Notre Dame, and every week it seems like he has 1 or 2 big plays as a receiver that changes the course of the game. His touchdown against USC was massive, and then at the beginning of this game against Pitt, his punt return for a touchdown is legitimately, I don't think I'm being hyperbolic here, one of the best punt returns I've ever seen. I have no idea how he didn't go down. And then once he finally broke through and you saw all that green in front of him, I'm going to be honest, I was watching that thinking, wait a second, is there a flag? This doesn't make sense. Notre Dame never punts for a touchdown. And as a matter of fact, it was the first punt return for a touchdown since 2015, which is wild. Notre Dame's punt return unit has never really been that dynamic. Then Chris Tyree breaks off this run, and it was just an incredible play. I think he ended up forcing 5 missed tackles on the play. I think Jamie Uyeyama from Irish Sports Daily joked that he forced more missed tackles on that one play than he did all of last season. That's not true, but it was still very funny. And he just looked like a different guy. Like, he got low to the ground, kept his feet moving, and gets an unbelievable play there to start off the game for Notre Dame. And that was really needed after an opening drive interception in the red zone that really was sort of deflating in the moment. But he makes this unbelievable play. And I just think what he's done this season for Notre Dame is it's so rare, honestly, that you see it nowadays in college football with the transfer portal and everything like that. And I'm not going to, give a spiel about how the transfer portal has ruined college football or anything like that, because Notre Dame has certainly benefited from it. But you love to see guys like this who stick around, they gut it out, and then be able to reap those awards on Saturday in the game. And Tyree, it wasn't just Saturday, man. He's had 19 catches on the year, 417 yards. He had 3 receiving touchdowns plus his punt return for a touchdown. He caught that one deep ball from Sam Hartman. I have no idea how he caught that ball. It was really risky by Sam Hartman. And an incredible throw, especially in the face of pressure. But Chris Tyree has 2 defenders draped all over him. Barely can even see the ball when it's coming down to him, but he makes the play. And the growth that he has shown as a wide receiver all year has been incredible. Shout out to him for his work ethic. And I really hope that he comes back next season for Notre Dame, because I could see him being a captain in his 5th year. He wasn't redshirted, obviously, but he still has the COVID year. So I think he would really benefit from coming back for Notre Dame. And if he ends up playing his way into the NFL, then good for him, man, because he deserves it. He deserves to get paid and all of that. But just great to see Chris Tyree have this level of success. And then there's Xavier Watts, whose story is similar, but let's start back when he was in high school. He was a 3-star recruit coming out of Omaha, Nebraska. He was brought in to play wide receiver, and he redshirted his freshman season, but showed that he had some real playmaking ability on special teams as a sophomore. By that point, he had already changed his position, so it's a little bit different than Tyree because it didn't happen so late in his career. But I remember watching him as a sophomore make plays on special teams. The first thing that I thought was, this dude can hit. Like, he is a violent football player. No wonder they decided to move him to safety, because that dude craves contact, and he made some big hits on special teams. Then, you get into 2022, Notre Dame is so thin at wide receiver that they actually made Xavier Watts cross-train at the position, even though he hadn't really played it at all in college. So we actually got a little peek behind the curtain from him when he was asked about it. I believe it was after the USC game, where he was pretty coy about it, but I think you could kind of sense that he didn't love that he had to do that, but he did it anyway. He did it for the team. He did it for his coaches. And then at the end of his junior season in 2022, he started the last 4 games, and that's when he really started to come on. Like, he played in all 13 games that season, but he really performed well against Navy and USC to close out the year. And then after that Gator Bowl game, you're looking at this 2023 season thinking, man, Xavier Watts, he could be a player. And then we go through the offseason. He starts to build a lot of hype around him coming out of spring practice, because everyone who was there covering the practices was like, hey, Xavier Watts is making some plays. He looks like a real player out there at safety. Like, we knew Notre Dame's cornerbacks were going to be really good, but safety was a huge question mark all offseason. I remember doing probably 10 different podcasts about the concerns at safety. But then Xavier Watts improved so much, and then you're like, wait a second, maybe it's not as big of a concern. And he had 2 more interceptions on Saturday against Pitt. It just seems like he's a ball hawk, a magnet, whatever you want to call it. He just finds the ball and makes plays, and he looks really good with the ball in his hands. You could tell it's not his first time. Like, some guys, when they make interceptions, they try to make moves, and you're like, just go down, dude. You're not fooling anyone. Xavier Watts is not like that. When he gets the ball, he's going to make some moves, and he's going to gain some additional yardage. So far this season, he leads the entire country in interceptions with 6 now. He's also 4th on the team in tackles with 39. He has 4 pass breakups, a forced fumble, and a fumble recovery for a touchdown. It is just unbelievable what he has done this season, especially as of late. That USC game and this Pitt game and back-to-back performances it's stuff you don't really see that often. And I don't know if he's playing his way on NFL draft boards. He's not the biggest guy. I think he's listed as 5'11 and 3/4 and 204 pounds. And I do love that they added that 3/4 in there. Like, he's not 6 foot, but he's really close. He's really close. So I think he could benefit from coming back to college and playing one more year at safety because he's still learning the position. And as we've seen so far in the past for a lot of other players, like it's a difficult position to learn, but he's really excelling now. And I think if he comes back next season, you're looking at Xavier Watts as one of the clear leaders on the defense. So just seeing guys like Chris Tyree and guys like Xavier Watts play so well and do everything right throughout their college careers. Like, they both could have left at different times in their college careers, but they didn't. They put the work in, and they did what was best for the team. They made some big sacrifices, but now they're reaping the rewards on an individual basis. And I think we as fans watching this team and caring so much about these players week in and week out, like it's stuff like that that makes you really appreciate college football. It makes you appreciate Notre Dame. It just makes this season so much more fun when the guys who are having the most success are guys who are easy to root for. And right now, I don't think there's two easier guys to root for than Chris Tyree and Xavier Watts. All right, we still got a lot more to get to. I'm starting to run out of words praising this Notre Dame defense, but I'm not completely out. So those are coming up next. Now time for your Game Changer of the Week, brought to you by Athletic Brewing Company. Much like Sam Hartman has done for the Notre Dame football program, Athletic Brewing has completely changed the non-alcoholic beer game. They make non-alcoholic beers that actually taste good. They're full of flavor and well-crafted, just like a full-strength beer. You can find Athletic Brewing Company's non-alcoholic brews at a store near you or buy online at athleticbrewing.com. First-time customers can use code LOCKEDON to get 15% off your first online order. That's code LOCKEDON at checkout for 15% off at athleticbrewing.com. Near beer, exclusions and conditions apply. Athletic Brewing Company, fit for all times. This episode is also brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. What brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors is everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. From superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebay.com/motors. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. Okay, before we get back to the game, I wanted to remind you to please subscribe to the show if you have not already. Whether you're watching on YouTube or listening to the podcast, you can subscribe from wherever it is that you're tuning in from. And if you're feeling extra generous, please like the video, rate and review the podcast. You know the deal. All right, let's get back to the game, and let's talk about Al Golden's defense because they continue to shine. And I know that Pitt's offense is terrible. I talked a lot about it in the preview podcast that, hey, man, they are one of the worst offenses in the country, and they might have been even worse than I thought. Their quarterback, Christian Xavier, I believe that's how you say it correctly. I don't know. I've heard like 15 different pronunciations at this point, but I believe it's Xavier. Anyway, he had an awful day. Just a no good, very bad, miserable day. Notre Dame set the tone early when Maris Leofau rushed him and just threw him down like a rag doll for the first sack of the game. That was pretty funny, and it did not get much better for our guy, Christian. He finished the game with 4 interceptions. He went 14 of 29 passing, 127 passing yards. It was just nothing. But this is what you've come to expect from this Notre Dame defense. They put in another dominant effort because even though Pitt's offense has been bad all year, they did still beat Louisville. They have some guys who can make some plays. I mean, hell, Sebo Flemister at Notre Dame was decent. Notre Dame completely shut him down, and they shut down all of Pitt's offense for the entire game. They held him to just 255 yards of total offense. Pitt went 1 of 11 on third down, and they just had 11 first downs in the game total. They had 5 yards per play. They just had nothing going the entire game, and I actually felt pretty bad for Chance Tucker there because he was in coverage there late when Pitt did finally score, and I actually thought he played the ball really well. It was a really good pass by their backup, Yarnell, and now you got to ask, wait a second, why wasn't Pitt playing Yarnell this whole game? Because Christian looked terrible, and I'm sure that all the Pitt fans on the message boards are probably asking the same thing, and I really started to think when Christian was throwing pick after pick after pick, like, think about it. Phil Jurkovec is not only worse than this guy, he's worse than the guy behind him. But I think I spent a little bit too much time on Phil Jurkovec in the preview podcast. So I won't spend much more time on him in this recap show because he was a complete non-factor in this one. I don't think he saw the field at all, which is disappointing because I did predict that, but it didn't seem to work out. I don't think he did. Maybe he got a snap. But either way, let's get back to what Notre Dame did on defense in this one because they've been doing this all season long. They are 10th in the country in scoring defense. They're only allowing 15.3 points per game. They are 3rd in the country in pass efficiency defense and pass yards allowed per game. They're also tied for third in total interceptions. And as all of this is happening, I thought back to the story that I heard when I was in Dublin before the Navy game. And the night before the game, I was at a bar with a bunch of my friends from college and stuff, and everyone's all geeked up and excited for the game, and we're starting to think, like, what could Notre Dame be this season? We're just talking, hopes are high, all that stuff, right? And I remember a conversation I had with one of my friends who said that he spoke with someone who's very well connected with the football program, had been around some practices and whatnot, and basically Al Golden was telling everyone behind the scenes that he believed that the defense was going to be not just good, but like incredible. And I heard that and I was like, whoa, that's really high praise. And I was like, I think they'll be good, but I don't know about incredible. They've got good corners. They've got experienced linebackers, but at that point in time, you're like, the defensive line is a bit of a concern. Who knows about safety outside of Xavier Watts? Like, there were still a lot of questions about that group as a whole. And boy, man, if this story is true and Al Golden was telling people, he was right, because this defense is incredible. They've been incredible all season long. And this was just another dominant performance by them. And I think that going through the rest of the way, like, none of these teams really scare you. Like, I'm not saying that Notre Dame couldn't lose to any of the four teams remaining on their schedule, but any of the three teams remaining on their schedule, because they only have 3 more regular season games than a bowl game. But still, none of their offenses are really that scary, and I think Notre Dame's defense is going to continue this level of dominance. But maybe one of the most impressive things about this performance from the defense is that they did it without 2 of their best players for the most part of the game. Benjamin Morrison missed the entire game. He was out with a quad strain. They announced that right before the game kicked off. And then Cam Hart was sidelined for most of the game as well, with what Marcus Freeman described as a shoulder/arm injury. I'm not really sure, but considering Cam Hart's injury history, anytime you hear the word shoulder, you get a little nervous. So hoping for the best for him. He did look like he was moving around well on the sideline. He was still very engaged throughout, but Notre Dame obviously needs those 2 guys down the stretch. But in their absence, Christian Gray and Jaden Mickey both stepped up. Christian Gray actually led the defense in snaps with 42 after seeing very limited action in recent weeks. And if it weren't for Chris Tyree, Christian Gray would have the most impressive play of the day. His interception, where he reached back with one arm, tipped the ball up to himself, makes the play while he's falling down, was an incredible play. And then watching the team react on the sideline to his first ever interception was another awesome moment from the game. Like, seeing it, like, you can always tell how the team perceives a player or how they feel about him when he makes a play, because if they're that excited, you're like, oh, that guy, he must be a great player to have in the locker room. So the team goes nuts. Great for him, and he wasn't the only young guy to step up at cornerback, because Jaden Mickey was in there a lot. He had a pick 6 and a very special one at that. His mom is battling cancer, and I'm sure that was clearly on the mind of Jaden after he ran it to the end zone. So very special moment for Jaden and his family. And credit to Jaden Mickey for persevering through what I'm sure is a very difficult time right now, and probably has been for months now. So being able to have that moment for him, for his family, is great. And the future is bright for Notre Dame's young cornerbacks. Christian Gray was targeted 7 times. He only gave up 2 catches for 30 yards. That ain't bad, man. And Jaden Mickey, he did allow a little bit more yards, a little bit more catches there, but he bounced back with that big pick 6, and I think that is huge for his confidence going forward, because Cam Hart is going to be out the door, Benjamin Morrison is going to be around for 1 more year, and then it's on these 2 and the freshmen coming in next year's class. And based on what I've seen from them so far, I feel really, really good about Christian Gray. I think Jaden Mickey still has a lot of work to do, but overall, just really excited about the future of the Notre Dame cornerback room. But those 2 weren't the only 2 young guys making some plays on Saturday. That's one nice thing when you just absolutely beat the hell out of an opponent. A lot of other young guys get in and they get to make some plays. So on offense, I loved what I saw from Steve Angeli, man. I think that Kenny Minchey has more opportunities to prove himself in practice than Angeli does, because Kenny Minchey's on the scout team and he's going up against the 1s in practice, where like Steve Angeli's working with the 2s most of the time. He's not really out there with the 1s that much, because Sam Hartman is going to be getting all the reps. So it's great that Angeli had a prime opportunity to showcase his skill set on Saturday with the rest of the 1s on offense in real live game action, and he played really well. Like, his touchdown pass to Cooper Flanagan was really impressive. Rolling to his left, he had to sprint at one point to get some separation from him and the defender. Turns, makes the throw for a touchdown. Awesome for Cooper Flanagan to get his first touchdown catch. Angeli finished 6 of 7 for 92 yards and a touchdown. He's got a lot more room to grow, but it's exciting to see him start to showcase, he might be a little bit better than even I thought, because I've said before that I think Kenny Minchey is the quarterback of the future. But hey, I've been wrong before. I could be wrong about this as well. Braylon James, the wide receiver, he got his first career catch on a nice slant. Drake Bowen had a couple tackles on defense. And, it seems small when these guys get in garbage time and they make some plays against a bad team. Like, I get that. But I think these opportunities go a really long way for these guys, especially their confidence, to sort of get that first play out of the way, or first few plays out of the way, so then they know, okay, I'm capable of doing it. I can do it under the bright lights. I can do it on Saturdays. And I think that's great to see, and that's one of the best parts about when you dominate a team, and it's even better when you do it against Pat Narduzzi. And my last note on the young players, I loved seeing Kenny Minchey come in to take the knee. And there were some people on Twitter that was like, why are they doing that? They're going to burn his red shirt. No, that was only the second time all year he's been in the game. He's got 2 more to go. But to bring in Kenny Minchey to kneel the ball, that's it. That's all he had to do, is end the game. Going up against Pitt, the team that Kenny Minchey was once committed to for a very long time, up until about a month before signing day when Notre Dame was able to flip in. That was like, that was a chef's kiss moment from Marcus Freeman, because, look, we all know how I feel about Pat Narduzzi and how Pat Narduzzi feels about Notre Dame. So I'm sure it was not very happy once Kenny Minchey decided that their quarterback of the future, Pitt's quarterback of the future, the replacement, the heir to Kenny Pickett, was going to go to Notre Dame, his least favorite school, and then Notre Dame brought him in to end the game. That was rich. And I thought it was the perfect amount of pettiness from Marcus Freeman. Whether it was intentional or not, I don't even know if he was thinking about that, but I am, and I'm going to choose to believe that he was, and that it was all planned, because I just loved it so much. All right, it wasn't all perfect, though, specifically on the offense. So what are we supposed to make of the offense's performance against Pitt? That's coming up right after this. This episode of Locked On Irish is brought to you by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is a skill-based, real-money daily fantasy sports game, and you pick 2 to 6 players, and if they will do more or less than their Prize Picks projection, you can win up to 25 times your money on any entry. Prize Picks adds a ton of excitement to the sports viewing experience, because you can watch your progress update in real time, win up to 25 times your entry amount, and cash out your winnings with quick scoring, settling, and withdrawals. I've been playing it recently. I have no idea why I've waited so long. I've been recommending it to my friends as well. And what I love most about it is that you aren't competing against other players. It's just you versus the projections available, instead of battling thousands of other players, including some professionals and sharks, that really lower your chances of winning. So go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnCollege and use code LockedOnCollege for a first deposit match up to $100. That's prizepicks.com/LockedOnCollege, code LockedOnCollege for a first deposit match up to $100. Prize Picks, daily fantasy sports made easy. So I got to imagine it's pretty rare that people have concerns about an offense after that team just won a game 58-7, but Notre Dame's offense wasn't scoring all of those points. They had the punt returned for a touchdown. There was the muff punt returned or recovered in the end zone for a touchdown. They also had the pick six. So even though Notre Dame lit up the scoreboard, I think there's still some things from the offense that I didn't love. And it starts obviously with the interceptions. It honestly felt like a here we go again moment when Sam Hartman threw his first interception on that opening drive of the game, right after Notre Dame had driven the ball all the way downfield, and Sam Hartman had gone 5 for 5 on the drive. I'm like, oh my God, here we go. Interception. It felt a lot like Louisville, where you're like, are we really doing this again? Is Pitt going to be this squirrely? And then he had another interception in the first half. So that was really discouraging, but then Sam Hartman got it back together. He ended up finishing with a pretty good game statistically outside of those 2 picks. He finished 18 of 25, 288 yards, but he did not have a touchdown pass in this game. So if you're looking at the offense's performance in totality, I feel like they did make some improvements. I thought the receivers stepped up and made some plays. Sam Hartman was spreading the ball around again. Rico Flores had a couple catches with the most yards of any receiving target with 72. Mitchell Evans, another big game from him. He had 5 catches, 66 yards, although he did go down with a knee injury late in that game. And at first I was like, oh, that did not look good. He immediately started clutching his knee, but maybe there's some hope that whatever the injury was above the knee, which would mean maybe it's just a bruise. If that's the case, obviously that's huge for Notre Dame going forward, because Mitchell Evans has been Sam Hartman's favorite target as of late. So keep an eye out on that. We'll obviously keep you updated here on the podcast. Chris Tyree, I've already talked about him. 3 catches, 62 yards. Tobias Merriweather sighting. How about that? 2 catches, 50 yards, including a 42-yard deep ball. Really, really encouraging to see him more involved in the passing game, especially on a deep shot, because when he gets running, man, in a straight line, like, he just moves different. He is so fast, and I just hope that catch helps him build some confidence down the road because, like, you see it. You see the traits with him. You see the size. You see the speed and all that, but he really needs to start putting it together on Saturdays. Hopefully that was a step in the right direction. Jaden Thomas, first game back from injury, 2 catches, 23 yards, but I thought he was really effective as a blocker, and I thought overall, like, the receivers made some plays. They needed him to make some plays in this one, and they did. They still have a ways to go, really, to be where the offense wants to be and needs to be to close out this season 11-2. But I thought, look, they needed to make some strides. They did in that respect. Pittsburgh also only got pressure on 7 dropbacks, which I thought was really encouraging. Really strong performance from the offensive line and pass protection because the only thing that Pitt was really good at was forcing havoc plays, forcing negatives like tackles for loss and sacks, and Notre Dame really held their own at the line of scrimmage. I was a little frustrated with their running game at the beginning of the game, but they started to get it going late. They finished with 155 yards. Wojciak Esme led the way, 19 carries, 114 yards, and 3 touchdowns. I don't know if they kept him in there to sort of pad his stats, maybe give him a better case to win the Doak Walker Award, but he's just such a beast out there, man, and especially in the second half, too. Like, that's got to be so brutal for defenses trying to bring that guy down. So he finishes with 3 touchdowns. I also loved what I saw from Jadarian Price. Like, he is starting to flash. He had 6 carries, 35 yards, and that touchdown run was really good. Like, he's got really strong legs. He kept his feet moving on his way to the end zone, and Notre Dame has made a clear effort to get him more involved in the running game. I think he looks healthy. I don't know if he's completely back to 100% after the Achilles injury he suffered over a year ago, but he has a gear, man, and I think that the future is really bright with him and Jeremiah Love. That I don't even know if you could call it thunder and lightning tandem because they both kind of look like lightning, but that was really great to see, and I do think that in order for Notre Dame to finish 11-2, to win, 10 games the regular season and then win a bowl game, preferably a New Year's Six, which it seems like Notre Dame is pretty well positioned to do that now. They're going to need some better play from the offense, a little bit more consistency, and Sam Hartman has some stuff to improve upon. The picks were really bad, and I did think it was interesting that on the pick he threw, it was a play-action play, and there has been some numbers to suggest that Sam Hartman really has not been that effective in play-action this season, although if you look at the final stat sheet from this game, he actually wasn't that bad. They ran play action 10 times, completed 8 passes for 173 yards. But still, on that one pick, they even broke it down in the broadcast. It was not an RPO, though, like they suggested. When he fakes the handoff to Esme, he immediately gets into pass protection. Both of the linebackers drop back into coverage, and Sam Hartman threw it right to him. Like, even if that second one wasn't tipped up in the air, like, that's getting picked off by some other defender. And then that first interception, I think we might not know the exact details there. Sam Hartman definitely expected Rico Flores to run his route flatter than he did. Flores kind of takes it upfield more like a post. Yeah, he was probably held a little bit by the defender, but not really a great route, not really a great throw by Sam Hartman. So there's definitely some things they need to improve upon, but I think that they will. And at this point of the season, Notre Dame doesn't have a big win. They don't. And I don't want this season to end with the best win being a close loss to Ohio State. I don't want that at all. Notre Dame needs to finish out 10-2. It's going to start this week against Clemson, and then they need to get a big win in the ballgame because I think an 11-2 season would be a really, really solid second year for Marcus Freeman. It would show clear signs of growth going forward, and it'd be a great sign for the future of this Notre Dame football program. But in order for that to happen, that offense is going to have to step up, and they're going to have to score some points on some good defenses here. Maybe not in the regular season, but in the bowl game because Al Golden's defense can't do it all, and you can't expect special teams touchdowns to happen week in and week out, especially against good teams. I did like how aggressive Jared Parker was pushing the ball downfield. That was great. If they can continue to do that down the stretch here, I think the offense is going to improve. They'll start putting up more points, be more explosive like they were at the beginning of the season, and 11-2 could be in sight. So we have plenty more to talk about this week. Luke Smith is going to come on the show tomorrow. We'll wrap up the Pitt game with everything that we liked and didn't like from the game. Be sure to subscribe to the show on YouTube or wherever listening to the podcast. Also, give the show a follow on Twitter /X at Locked On Irish. The Instagram account is at Locked On Irish Pod, and my personal Twitter account is at Tyler WOJCIAK. I'll see you guys tomorrow.